affordable price of only $14 per foot are of the highest quality. Their opening hours are Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. For more information, call 664-2441 or 664-2959. Island Roofing and Hardware Limited, meeting your complete roofing needs by providing quality products at affordable prices.
Tiles and more tiles. Builders Paradise is the largest supplier of tiles. Tiles from as little as $3.95. Tile cement, 50-pound bag from as little as $37.44. And oh, don't forget to check out their Saturday sale for even better discounts. Visit them today at C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Thought That Get Results. I'm Everett Weber Herbert, and as per usual, we are here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. With regards to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You got a question or a comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, paper, write it down so that when you get on the show, you're well organized, so that you take as little time as possible and we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem not within our broadcast standards. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get the Results. Also, you can join us for the live video stream on our Facebook accounts, our Facebook page, and also on our Facebook, or rather our YouTube account, so that you can see the reactions and you can get the video stream live. Tonight, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the entire listening and viewing audiences. Special good evening to my cousin Sinwick there in St. Kitts, and my favorite niece, Merle, and Anne and Pam in St. Thomas, as well as Mr. Martin, my other half in the UK, my nephew in the USA, and anybody else special that I left out? Yeah. My aunt here at home. Good evening to all.
Conrad Nair Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleagues around the table. Pleasant good evening to you guys. All my friends in the international circle, as I always hail you guys up, especially my brethren in Connecticut. Welcome to the program once again. Webo, it's always a pleasure to come here on a Tuesday night discussing the issues that affecting the people home and abroad. Webo, I suppose the festive occasion is over until Christmas, so we can settle down and get some things done and look at our productivity. And again, you know, we commit ourselves to nation building here in this beautiful little island of Nevis. I understand that there's probably an election season coming up pretty soon, so I suppose all have to be on their best behavior. We understand they got some new political names on the political platform, so they themselves have a lot of work to do. I think the people have high expectations, and they deserve to be communicated with more often. And of course, transparency have to be a feature of our political landscape going forward. Well, it's a pleasure to be here again, and thank you for having me.
Ted Hobson, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. First of all, I want to apologize for the absence of the Honorable Spencer Brand, who has matters of state that he has to deal with. And so he has asked me to convey his regrets that he couldn't be here tonight. Webbo, as usual, I'm always very honored to be on this program, talking to the people of Nevis and wherever they are, people of St. Kitts. And Webbo, when we gather here, we try, to me anyway, and I'm sure to all the panelists, we have certain responsibility, and that responsibility is really to say it as we see it. And I think most of us try to honor that creed. And I enjoy being here, Webbo, and I look forward to a good discussion on current affairs and other matters of state and matters of importance to this island and to the people of the island.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening,
But
Webbo.
before I let you answer, right, let me just say that this Edric Stanley is just something else. Now, a few mornings ago, I explained, Ted, that if I had to choose another vocation in life, it would be a messenger. Because that is what I naturally end up being. Now, I hardly can go anywhere or speak to anybody and they don't give me a message to give Edric. So I go to the supermarket, Edric, a fellow meets me and he says, when you go on the program Tuesday, tell Edric that I do trucking. And if he ever wants any trucking done, he will do it for free. I say, Edric knows you? He said, yes. So I said, just tell him that you do trucking, and if he wants any trucking done, he'll do it for free. He said, just tell him that, and he will know who it is. That's something else. Then I get a letter from a lady, and I'm feeling very good about it, right? And at the end of the letter, P.S., say hello to Mr. Stanley. that like something like two friends I had. Let's say Ted and Naya. So Naya phone rings, his cell phone, and the person on the other end says, can I speak to Ted? I said, but maybe it's how the world is. Anyway, Edric, I gave you those messages. Good evening, Edric.
Good evening, Webbo. I mean, I take this with laughter. And there are times when some would come in, because I brought in something the other day. And he said he met two people, and one is completely opposed, and the other is completely supportive. And of course, you said last week that you met someone who said it's the first time that they ever agreed with Edric Stanley. And for 30 years, I've been on this radio station. Could you imagine? Boy, I may have said some terrible things.
No, but
Don't misunderstand me.
No, keep in mind. I only give you a sample of what I get. You know, I don't bring everything. The reason why I told you about the letter is because I just opened it, and the lady is a teacher. You know what I'm saying? And I felt so good about the letter, because I don't get letters. And
it looks like an epistle.
It looks like an epistle?
Quite so.
Yeah, that's why I felt good about it, because she was talking about me. But then, say hello to Edric Stanley. Anyway, that's a light moment. Okay.
Well, let me say good evening to
And by the way, I might just add, you ran the wrong times. Because if you run these days now, you'll win.
Well, no.
No?
No, I wouldn't win.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I would not win.
But you're you're 25, 30 times more popular now than you
No,
were
I
then.
understand. I know what it takes to win. It takes money to win.
But it takes a fan base. It takes
You
votes.
have a fan base, but I tell you, they can't get you over the top. Don't kid yourself.
Okay, all right. So, I've done my job.
So, I have said good evening to my fellow panelists and to the people of St. Kitts, and of course the gracious people of Nevis, those who will be listening to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin, and those who will be viewing us too on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, I'm certain that we'll try and add another medium, maybe before the year ends, to, of course, get our messages out with reference to what's happening in Nevis, St. Kitts, the region, and the wider world. So, Webo, I would say, again, good evening to everybody, and let's have a good discussion this evening. Have a few things to tell.
Edric W. Stanley, Ted Hobson, Conrad Naya Liebert, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Be back after these.
Sugar City St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to VOW.
Tiles, and more tiles. Builders Paradise is the largest supplier of tiles. Tiles from as little as $3.95. Tile cement, 50-pound bag from as little as $37.44. And oh, don't forget to check out their Saturday sale for even better discounts. Visit them today at C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Naya Liebert, Ted Hobson, and Edric W. Stanley. Now, I noted that you've got maybe varied things that you like to put on the table and perhaps discuss at length. But I'd just like to mention and the form of asking if any of you heard of the news item where Jamaica, the Jamaican government, had put in this curfew in certain parishes and certain areas. And they were saying that it, to some degree, was working. But the reason for the curfew is the uncontrollable criminal activity. Now, Jamaica has been down this road for years. It was not always that way. And I remember years ago they went into something that they call vigilante justice, because they felt that, you know, some people anyway, felt that the justice system was just not working for them. When your neighbor's house is on fire, you wet yours. In other words, the stage that Jamaica is at right now, it wasn't always at that stage. Correct, Edric?
That is correct.
You see where I'm going, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we have to wet our house now that Jamaica is burning. Because ultimately, if we understand what's going on within our communities, ultimately, if it is not brought under control, we too would have to invoke martial law or whatever system to in fact control our communities with reference to criminality, criminal activity, the uncontrollable power that the criminals have with reference to guns, ammunition, taking the law, and to in fact challenge the authorities and challenge the rule of law. We have to in fact wet our house, and if we don't, we would be at the same juncture that Jamaica is right now within those parishes.
Ted, if someone were to describe it as the nation seemed to be heading into an area of wanton lawlessness, what do you say?
Well, I have to agree with that, you know, Webo. You know, I lived in Jamaica between 1972 and 1978. And this criminality has been rampant in Jamaica for a long time. In fact, I might even say that I had decided when I went to Jamaica in 1972 that I loved the country. I liked the people of Jamaica. My wife was bonded by the Jamaica government. She had studied architecture in Scotland, financed by the Jamaica government through a scholarship. And so she had to return to Jamaica after she was qualified. We got married immediately after she was qualified, and I had to give up my job as a Deputy High Commissioner in London and moved with her to Jamaica. And I became very much involved in the politics of Jamaica. In fact, I became a member of the executive of the People's National Party. And so I have first-hand knowledge of, you know, what goes on in that country. And to tell the truth, when I left Jamaica with a heavy heart, because I love the country, I love the people, as I indicated. But my wife said she's not staying here because people who we know were being gunned down as way back in the 70s. And so what is happening in Jamaica is really no surprise for me. But Jamaica has a way of exporting its problems to the rest of the Caribbean. I mean, Naya may not like me to say this, but when I became a lawyer in this country in 1963, there was no such thing as ganja. There was no such thing in Nevis and St. Kitts as ganja. It may have existed in the mountain, but nobody knew of it, and there was no problem. In fact, there were no Rastas at all. Not that I'm condemning Rastas. But it all starts in Jamaica. And when you see it starts in Jamaica, whatever the trend is, gradually it comes down to these islands. First, it was brought down by the students who went up to study at Mona. And now, of course, the internet is there, and we have immigration, a lot of immigration from Jamaica. And so we are going to, in a sense, copy what they do up there. Unfortunately, most of it is not so good. And that is the problem. How to stop it? I mean, it's heart-rending, Webo, that our people have gone through slavery and suffered under the whip of the white people and the people who were colonizers and so forth. And literally what is happening now is that a breed of criminals exists in this country that are putting us back into the same position. We are at the mercy of these people. And people are afraid to move around at night. People are afraid to go and do what they have to do because we are afraid of them. So we're almost back to the time when the colonialists and the slave owners had us in bondage. We are literally going back to that stage as bondage when we're supposed to be elevated and we're supposed to have free education and we are supposed to be enjoying some of the best quality of life in any part of the world. We are up there with the first graders, the first world and so forth in the kinds of facilities we have and so forth. But we are really moving in the wrong direction, and I don't know what is going to stop us, what is going to ease us. I don't know. Whether you appeal to patriotism, whether you appeal to what? I don't know what you could appeal to because nobody's listening. We are talking tonight, Webo, but the young people who are doing all the damage in the country are not listening to us.
Dr. Bartlett,
talking to the converted.
Dr. Bartlett, Ted zeroed in on maybe a small group. But is it possible, though, that it could be a small group doing maybe the larger crimes, but then the base is broader who are doing some of the smaller things, because you hear a lot of people complaining. People maybe just walk in other people's yard and their premises, pick their fruits, and just basically do as they feel.
Yep, that is the trend nowadays, unfortunately. And this speaks to social dysfunction. It used to be that governments used to focus on economic or socio-economic development. But now what is happening is that we're having economic development and social dysfunction. They're going in two opposite directions. And we have got to get the formula right. We are focusing too much on one thing as opposed to the other. And there's some simple fixes that we're going to have to at some point consider. Because we always said these things start at home, but right now we're not doing much. The policies that I've seen within recent times don't do much to promote, home, What we've seen is everybody just clamoring for money, everybody, and unfortunately that leaves, other things, by the wayside. Mr. Hobson mentioned that these people are, at nights you can't, he's not even at nights now, in broad daylight. It's just tonight before we got on here, I was mentioning, to my fellow panelists that I'm so upset, and I bemoan the fact that we can go around with tint as dark as we wish. I wish that none of us could put tints on the vehicles, because I'm so uncomfortable now. Even during the day, a car would pull up next to me. I can't see anybody inside there, and I'm like, it gives me this uncomfortable feeling because the climate is not, comfortable already, Already I feel compromised as it relates to my personal safety. And then for a vehicle to pull up next to me and I can't see who is in there, I don't understand where we're going with that. And then there are some people in this society who I'm hearing, trying to defend people tinting cars. I mean, I have a car. I didn't put tint on it, not because I couldn't afford it. I just didn't see the necessity. If people have things to hide, maybe they should, consider maybe moving to a bigger country. I think, something as simple as that, I think we need to, at this point, take the bull by the horn. I think tint should be removed from a vehicle. Today when I read, that, or this evening rather, that somebody was gunned down, and on Sunday, the same thing. And these guys are not waiting until night, it's day, and the description today, or the account of what happened today seemed to suggest that it was a vehicle that was heavily tinted. I'm like, where are we going in this country? These little simple things, like you said, somebody has house on fire, simple things you can do to make sure that yours don't, catch a fire too. And we're just sitting back and not doing these little simple things that we ought to do. And it is really disconcerting, because most of us are model citizens, but it's like I said, it's just a handful, of people. I don't know it is fair to say that the immigration that Jamaica necessarily exporting to here, because there are other influences as well. And we have some bad people right here, homegrown bad people, they don't need no influence from nowhere else. But it's just that they're homegrown, but they're not very well grown. We have to start looking at these kind of things, Mr. Hobson made the comment about, the immigration. We have to also consider that, because I am all for globalization. I am all for the free movement of people. But at some point, you'll have to be practical about how we implement CSME. It makes no sense for you to suggest that people could just move and just take up residence someplace and then you have hardships coming there. Because if Nevis seemed to be a place, or St. Kitts Nevis rather, seemed to be a place that, might be doing well, you're going to have people who are not doing so well who gravitate to these places. At what point do you say we have had enough? We studied the situation in Antigua, where initially they said they wanted a 5 years, because things were not so well there, so they didn't want to accept certain categories of, individuals moving there from CSME, mind you. And they got 5 years, and after the 5 years, they, when they went back and were trying to see if they could get an extension on that, because they recognized it was not a sustainable way to go about, doing business. I mean, you're going to have people coming in, and you have to accommodate everybody. And now that they've had this, well, I don't know that we've necessarily signed on to it yet, but the protocol of contingency rights, of contingent rights. I mean, gives a man, just a skilled man comes into St. Kitts Nevis, he could bring his family. He could bring his mother if she's dependent on him. He could bring grandmother if she's dependent on him. And he set up shop, and if hardship reached them, I mean, the social nets that we create for our people here, and like I said, I don't necessarily think that we should be discriminating, but we have to be practical. You must have something in place, not like Antigua go and argue one case that, you know, most of the institutions are stressed. You must have something set up ahead of time so that you could have a balance. Or else I think that most of the countries, because Haiti now is also in the mix, and so most of the countries are gonna at some point experience, you know, an influx of people that you may not even be able to control, you know, or provide for, or provide opportunities for. And I'm hearing, you know, Kittitians and Nivisions, you know, ranting already on the radio about people not having enough to do and people coming in and taking their jobs, but I don't think it has been explained to them, or explained to us rather, you know, the whole concept and what is going to happen. And, you know, we have a lot of preparation of our people to, you know, to get done, you know, to absorb, you know, outside influences. And likewise, if we send them from home and they have no foundation and they go outside, I mean, and they mingle with people who have more influence over them because they spend more time with them, that is something that is really unsustainable. We can't allow our kids to go out without a foundation, and that is what is happening. And we have to start considering different things other than just what we're gonna, if we're gonna spend $1 million, you know, to give to the police to do, you know, and not getting any results. That doesn't make sense. But like you said, you know, it's a broader picture than rather than just a handful of people who are doing these vigilante things. I mean, you have people who are doing other things, and crime is up, regardless of what people are saying. Maybe people don't report crimes like they used to, but crime is definitely up.
Now, Dr. Bartlett says that there are some really simple things that we can do that can make big positive differences. Do you get the feeling that we know what we should do, we know what is right, but we are waiting for somebody to tell us to do it or make us do it?
I truly don't think so, Webo, you know. I think the status quo...
You sure you don't think what? That it's some simple things, or that you don't agree with the premise with Dr. Bartlett, or it is that you don't think that we're waiting for somebody to tell us?
No, I agree with Dr. Bartlett to a great extent. The platform is more broad-based. We are waiting for somebody to tell us. I am not sure. What I'm looking at, Webo, is the status quo, which people enjoy. Some people enjoy it, yeah? The status quo is as such. It's boundarified by, it looks to me like class distinction sometimes. You know, Webber, we are coming out, our little history is important when we talk about the way life is in these places and the way people develop, the social construct, economic development and all that, because we are coming out of a situation of slavery, and of course we are very much that type of people, as we refer to as crab in a barrel. We were free into this capitalist world, and you know what that implies. They're going to be those who exploit people, and they're going to be those who are exploited. Surrounding that, usually, where we see a distinct class society develops. And, of course, out of that, you see the haves and the have-nots. And the reason why I say we like the status quo, because those who are in control enjoy controlling the masses. These are, to me, those at the top of the pyramid. It makes me laugh, Weber, because I know during the days of slavery, we see color, education, and wealth. They were together. Here now, it's our own people, ex-slaves just like everybody else, who feels like they can construe themselves in a class And sometimes it breeds politicians as well. But really, they don't care about the everyday people. They exclude them from the social, economic, and political equation, only to call upon them when it's time to vote. Webo, it's a shame to hear people say that Jamaica exporting violence to other islands. People need to look at themselves, look at their construct, look at the society they have built, look at the inequality the people deal with in Nevis, look at the prejudice. Nevis doesn't Nevis doesn't have no citizen advisory bureau. People are ill-informed as to their rights, their legal position. You cannot go to court without a lawyer, otherwise you would not get justice. We speak last week about the 80% of people who is basically left out and pushed aside. The education system. It's ludicrous to hear people want to bring in ganja into this discussion, because there is crime in St. Kitts Nevis and also crime in Jamaica. There are crime in Trinidad. The other day, Puerto Rico was known as the murder capital of the world. We need to look at ourselves and the injustice and how people feel about their livelihood and how intertwined they're in the political, social, and economic movement of the place. I could be one who look at this situation very critical and get upset too, because I see that trend whereby somehow they put up these people who come back from university as politicians. Look what happened in the last administration. A group of guys like them want to rape the whole island. And they've done it to a great extent. And what do you think people feel? It's our island. It's not their island. You know, people are vexed. People are upset. People feel entreated, you know, mistreated as well. And this is what we are seeing coming out.
But now, to be fair,
part and parcel, I must say, Webo. You know, so let us not sit here and feel like we got the perfect society where everything should thrive well and everyone should be happy. It is not like that. The other day, I mean, poor people go down in the prison, I mean, for some reason, just an investigation. Sometimes they spend 3-4 years down there waiting to be heard. If it's the son of Mr. So-and-so, they let him go, even on a murder charge. Come on, man. We're talking about justice here, man. We're talking about a level play field, you know?
But Naya, in that same vein with the justice and the level play field, and the point you made about the politicians and who run and who get there, right? And equal rights. To be fair, a few years ago you had your political party.
Yes.
But you did not stay the course. You agree with that?
Stay the course.
Yes, meaning that you ran once.
Yes.
You did pretty okay in my view for a first time. But you didn't come back the second time. Who knows? Maybe, perhaps, just perhaps, had you ran the second time, you might have won. You might have been the premier. You might have been implementing some of your ideologies and policies.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And so, therefore, it is not fair to say that you and who you speak of didn't have a fair chance. You agree with that?
I'm not sure if I can agree with that. In terms of, are you talking about political power here?
Yeah, you're right. I was speaking about that one reference that you made as part of, quote unquote, the big problem, where you suggested, for instance, certain people maybe studied, run for politics, put certain things in place. But you had a great chance. And it's not an easy road. Nothing that is good come easy. Right? And I personally felt, because remember, I was the one who did your first interview, you know, remember that?
Yes.
You gave me that honor.
Yes.
And I personally felt that you had a good chance. But it's difficult to make it the first time around.
Okay. So, okay, there was a first, but no one is sure whether or not there would be a second. But
you would agree that...
Yeah, and Webo, if I had, you know, make the grade, of course, I would have been trying to implement most of the things, a lot of the things that I'm talking about, for sure, Webo. I would have definitely tried to to break down the barriers, which are sometimes.
But you didn't.
We-
And most of the
But
people,
that's what I say.
some
If
of
I'd
the
make the grade
persons,
level.
some of the persons who are now putting their ideologies and views in place didn't make it the first time around. You agree with that?
Yes.
So maybe the persons who feel that they're behind the 8 ball, maybe they should fight for their causes a little harder, because that's what the other fellows did, right?
That is true, and I would encourage that all the time.
Or Edric.
I just have to listen to Naya, and when I say that, what I mean is that you have to be practical. We understand how the game is done, how it's played, and if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. You cannot get into that level of governance unless you prepare yourself, whether academically, financially, socially, and otherwise. You have a task, you must be able to identify what the task is and how to accomplish it. You will have people who have their ideas and will try to box your idea out of the ring and allow their idea to flourish. You have to, it's a contest, and it starts from the womb. And once you get out here, you have to figure out how you're going to get the playing field leveled. And you have to start with those things that I just mentioned: academic, economic, political, social, and otherwise. Those people who have gotten there, they have studied it and tactically approached the task and won. And they look at you, who might be attempting to get in, and figure out how they must keep you out. Now, fortunately, we are of the same racial background. We're all black people, and we govern one another. But those who are at the level of governance, they have prepared themselves. So if you have failed, it simply means that the failure must be laid directly at your feet.
Yeah, but I don't know what we're talking about here.
So-
You're going to talk for politics and strategies into winning an election.
It's not only politics, it is the whole existence.
What I am
of our
talking
people.
about, right, is the political trend and the mindset, okay, that exists, that seems to form, that seems to develop a group of people. You understand? Which I consider to be the people that at times run the country. Okay, I'm talking about the masses of people and their concern that has not been addressed over and over again. I'm talking about the exploitation of the masses by the politicians and dividing the people. That's what happened. That was a major problem in Jamaica too. Lots of the violence and the war on crime start from the politics, and that we are seeing here as well. So this idea about, you know, mentioning ganja and all these kind of things, it's folly to me. It's absolutely folly. I am talking about the class distinction that left some people feel left out of the equation. And we see it happening. I mean, we speak last week about the 80%. Well, who are these 80%? These 80%.
But you said that before, and you had your turn to speak.
Are not only those who are less intelligent, you know, are poor people to be. People from poor background, you know. The other percent is not necessarily more intelligent than them in every way.
Now,
you understand?
Now,
But
if you analyze this whole situation, everybody who has arrived...
state of affair which we propel and so many people enjoy, and it remains in place, and therefore it's destructive to the society.
The color of the skin of those who rule. We have no white people in the Nevis Island administration.
Yeah,
and
but
they
it seems
all
like
came
white
out of
people-
the slavery class. but they have figured out how to get to the top. And I've just given you 4 areas as how to get to the top. And you cannot be feeding this hogwash to the people out there for them to swallow it. Let them begin to understand how they can get to the top by going to school and having a good education. It means that you get a good income. And having a good income means that it would bring about some level of influence and power. And as a result, you have to figure out how to get where you want to go.
I'm one who is totally committed and knows the benefits of education. Webo and Mr. Stanley, I educate myself. I encourage people every day. Even when I go to the bank, I talk to the tellers. I ask them, when are you going to study? You know, this is something I propel every day.
But it must be translated into economic power.
So you're not telling me that these are people who fight hard to get to the top. I encourage people to do that in every way.
But Maya, you will agree that one can be a coach, train their athletes every day, tell them to do all the right things, but on competition day or night, they don't win. You agree with that?
At least they have tried and they are striving for
right.
the objective to be, you know, up to scratch.
Right. So that's what life is like, and that is what's happening in the game of life. Everybody is trying, but some are going to do better than others, and the question is that those who don't make it, right, they're going to feel probably a certain way.
Well, making it is one thing, Webo. I'm talking about the group of people that call themselves government. It's important to know the mindset of these people, you know, because it's the mindset of these people tends to run the place and of course create the policy. And
so you're saying that the mindset of the few is different to let's use the 80%.
Those in government
right.
are as such, okay? We will see the lesser man, poor people getting the bad end of the stick.
Right, which you refer to as, let's say, the 80%.
Yes.
And that's the masses.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this. Well, how did the 20% get to the top?
How did they get to the top, Webo?
Yeah.
The opportunity.
No, let me answer it. They were put there by the 80%. No? No?
I think he's got a bit obfuscated here.
No. let me
Are
go
you
to
talking about the group of guy that forms the government?
No.
2080.
Yes, 2080. You're saying that you agree that the 20% is at the top, and they have a different way of thinking to the degree that they are pressing the 80%. You agree with that?
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Okay, let's go over it again. You have an issue with the elite persons.
The ruling class.
The ruling class that make up the government, the politicians, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that that's the minority.
That's a group.
That oppress the 80%, the majority.
Well, oppress is a word. I'm not sure sometimes.
Okay, okay. Well, let me change that word. They put their policies on the 80%, and as a consequence, they are not doing so good. The 80%, right? You agree with that? You agree that's what you're saying?
Okay.
Right.
I'll walk with you.
So the question is now, how did the 20%, that small group, get to be in charge of that big group, the 80%?
Well, if we're talking, well, it's simple because I can only align this with government and the mass of people. You know, the political system which we have, we elect some people. I am concerned about their mindset. and how much they are committed to change the situation, to turn things around.
You mean the 80%?
No.
But
those
what
who
I'm
find
saying,
themselves
so
in
what
the
I'm,
seats of government.
yeah, but what I'm saying,
Because those who find themselves in
what
the
I'm
seats
getting
of
at,
government is part of the 20%.
yeah, but what I'm saying, well, let me answer the question then. Let me put the question a different way. Is it not the 80% to put them there?
Yes, I can say yes.
Okay.
With that.
So then,
Yeah,
what's
but Webo,
the argument
Webo,
about? Yes.
And that's why I mentioned the word trend. And it's a trend we will have to look at, you know. And, you know, to a certain extent, the CCM have proven differently. You know, I see people there who are people in the private sector, youths who have, you know, average people. I see Mr. Spencer Brand, I see Eric Evelyn. These are very social. These are people who you can reach. And honestly, I see them slightly different for now. As I said the other day, Spencer Brand is the best politician, and I hope I can continue to say that for a long time to come. But Webo is the trend that exists, and what is the status quo? You understand? I am saying that there are times life can be more rewarding, could be more better for the 80%. But I don't
You
think
consider yourself among the 80%?
I'm a part of the masses. Yeah.
No, man.
Right.
I'm a part of the masses.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If you were to get four more of you who are in the 80%, right? And you run a full slate for the next election, are you likely to win? You think?
Well, the trend is so engraved, Webo, and it's further engraved by finance, as you hear them always talk. If you don't have money, you can't win.
Yeah, but Naya, walk along with me. Walk along with me. If the 80%, if the 80% feel oppressed by the 20%, and then you said to them, "Come, let's decide now, who is going to represent us?" You still go with the 20%?
Me?
You're plural.
I sorry, Webo, I'll have to ask you to because I gotta be careful.
Take a case like Nelson Mandela's.
Your questions.
Nelson Mandela came out of that oppressed mass, the masses.
No, sir. No, sir.
Well, you can.
Nelson Mandela came from the most privileged part of the African community.
You could say that.
Very wealthy.
But we know.
Yeah,
from
state of mind. And that's what I'm talking about.
We know that
Botha
and the white people in South Africa, what they did to those people. And if you want to put it that way, Ted, don't misunderstand me.
I'm just telling you, as a matter of record, that he's from the...
Don't misunderstand me. I'm talking about a system. And I'm just bringing that system close to home based on what Naya is saying. Here you got a class in South Africa where the minority, simply because they were of a different color, they ruled. Out of the other side, the other color, came Nelson Mandela. Webo is telling Naya now, out of that 80% of the masses, you choose some candidates from that class and see if you could influence them to turn the table. Mandela turned the table.
Well, that's not
apart from his wealth and background. Huh?
That's not impossible.
I'm just saying that's what Webo was trying to bring to you. And I only brought the Mandela case to the fore.
That's not impossible. You can have that rise
to amplify and to make Webo's point. And also to help you to clarify your own point.
No, there can be rulers coming out of the masses. There can be a grassroots political party. They're educated people amongst the
Mandela led
masses.
his people and country to change the system. And what Webo is attempting to tell you, since you are so entrenched with this 80%, get your firepower together.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
This is Talk That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Ted Hobson, Conrad Nye Liebert, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. We'll be back right after these. Remember, you can View the video stream on our Facebook page and also on YouTube. Back after these.
When VON vibrates, the whole Caribbean must shake.
860 AM, the powerhouse.
Looking for a place you can go to and enjoy a healthy meal? Check out Island Life Vegetarian Food and Juice Bar, located at Penny's Industrial Site below the supply office. They are open Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They offer you healthy, delicious, nutritious food on a menu that boasts Ital food, sandwiches, burgers, roti, puddings, and much more. They have a wide variety of freshly squeezed fruit and vegetable juices and smoothies that includes beet, carrot, pumpkin, tamarind, star apple, and sarsaparilla, and much more. Contact them today at 660-5318 or 668-3107. Get your generators now and be prepared for the upcoming hurricane season at Builders Paradise for only $2,250. Yes, you heard that right, $2,250. Located at C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Park, Basse-Terre, St. Kitts. Builders Paradise is there to help you to be prepared. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Libet, and Ted Hobson. Well, your phone calls, you can call now if you like to participate, 1-869-469-1616 or 1700. Any other addition, Dr. Bartlett?
Well, I realize that we kind of strayed away from the central point, but I guess it's not for me to decide where we go with the argument. Webo, Naya made a point as it relates to, as if to suggest that we are now creating classes in St. Kitts and Nevis, and that is an observation that I myself, have made. It used to be that we're all poor people, but now when you go to certain functions, sometimes you have VIP, and the thing is, for me, I don't mind people having VIP, but I don't think that the government should be ever, promoting that kind of thing. I'm not trying to suggest that some of us may not be able to afford it, but a lot of times when you go to these functions and people are in VIP, they're being paid by the state. It is being sponsored by the state, and I can't imagine that would be fair. I don't see us, doing too well if we're going to go down that line, because anytime we already recognize that within the society we have these inequities, and inequalities and injustices, and whenever you find that you have people starting to be, separated and segregated like that, if you're going to segregate us, economically, you're asking for trouble. And I want to suggest that we desist from these things. Because like I said, sometimes you go to VIP and it's people who can afford it. Like, I don't know, Mr. Hobson wouldn't mind if I call his name. But you would, you find people like Mr. Hobson in VIP and he can afford to pay, let him pay if he wants to. But I don't think that the state should be encouraging that kind of thing. We need to start addressing these issues, because you have a lot of perceived...
Okay, Dr. Bartlett, I'll let you finish the point, but let me just accommodate this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good night, Mr. Brewer.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, that's it, right? I just come up the road, and some guys and some girls, so they will like a little recap.
Call 469-5391, okay? Yes, Dr. Bartlett.
Maybe for the benefit of the general audience, listening audience, you can just let people know that is the police station. He knows a similar concern.
He knows. he knows. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm saying we ought not to be celebrating, the differences that we have amongst us in that way. because it is glaring, and people, you can hear from the passion in Naya's voice. He doesn't like it. I don't like it either. And there are a lot of people in this country who do not like it.
Can I interrupt you and
Of course
ask a
you can.
question?
Of course you can.
Does the government pay for all those people who are at the VIP lounge?
I don't know that they do, but I know they sometimes have VIP section that's sponsored by government. That's it.
Well, the thing is that I always thought that people would have paid their way to be at the VIP lounge, and as a result, I am not there simply because I chose not to be there.
No, because somebody chose not to invite you.
No,
no, there's some functions that are open, and you know you
Go
can
ahead.
pay to go to VIP. You know, you can pay to go to VIP.
Go ahead.
I think if we're gonna have such an area, and mind you, if people insist that they must have it, I think that you should have a lot of system, and everybody in the community got a free chance of being pulled to, you know, meet with the premier or whatever it is. I remember going to St. Kitts and being in the premier's box. You know, I wasn't invited there, but I thought I had as much right as anybody else in St. Kitts Nevis to be in the premier's box. At least I had a right, you know. And somebody gave me the ticket, and I went and I sat down and I drank with everybody. I didn't eat the food, but I thought that I wanted to see what it was like. And I was like, well, why is it these people qualified to be here just because they're his friends? Why should all of us be paying for that, you know? And I thought that I had as much right as anybody else to be there, and I didn't feel bashful about it. I said good night to him too. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're going to have something like that, give everybody an opportunity to do. You know, have a little system. If Naya name come out this time, you know, don't put back Naya in for the next function, you know, but give everybody a little exposure. I mean, make everybody feel wanted, feel a part of this thing. Because if you don't, you're creating a system where you're going to have people poaching on other people. And we're not going to see any end to what is happening now, you know. And every day it is getting even more glaring and even worse. The kind of atrocities that are happening, you know. I mean, the kind of things that are happening on the streets. It's, you know, I mean, I don't know where we are going with this kind of attitude. And we need to start checking ourselves, and government has a role to play as well. You can't be setting up bourgeois system here. You know, it's not going to work. You know, it's going to infuriate a lot of people, and things not going to get any better. And you cannot, at the end of it, appeal to people's patriotism and think that that is going to solve the problem, because that wouldn't.
But let me ask you this question. You have the education system, and we know that you have to either pass or fail. You know what you have to do to pass, which means you have to do better. You have to work toward becoming better, doing good, or doing excellently. So what is so wrong about those people who attempt to see that as a plateau and work to get there?
I don't know where you're going with the question.
The question
disconnected me too.
The question is that we know that the education system is set in such a way.
But let me bring it back. Let me reconnect. Dr. Bartlett was speaking specifically to the VIP system,
True.
where some people seem to be chosen and others are not. So that's what your question relates to? Or you went off to another area?
I think it's the same thing he's talking about.
I'm talking about the same thing.
So so you are suggesting that those people who get picked,
chosen,
they were able to pass, and those that's what you seem to be
Look,
suggesting?
I'm focused on the VIP lounge in Nevis.
Yeah, but what
All
I'm
right?
saying is
that's what what I was told.
Yeah,
is
but
that
you made a reference
Yes.
about those people who are able to pass and stuff like that,
Right.
right?
Because
so I'm asking you, I'm trying to connect it. So you're saying to Dr. Bartlett that those people who were able to pass were therefore able to qualify to get into the VIP lounge?
those people who eventually get in the VIP lounge work their way to earn and pay. Those people who get to the top academically work hard to get there.
What are you talking about, Stanley? I don't know. I can't.
You're confusing, Stanley.
No,
I just want to go.
I'm just saying that.
Okay, I just want to make the point that somebody can be very highly educated, and he's a part of the masses. It's just an attitude Is it just something that I think many times we go away and we get educated and we go into this isolation and feel like we're bigger than some people, and we build this big house and everybody is around you, you look down upon. And I find those kind of people form a group, and I refer to that as a class distinct society.
Yeah, but
it's not good in terms for the equality that's supposed to exist amongst people, because you find, say, these people now, there are times they find themselves in government, some of them, and enough time the policies in government is to keep those people in that particular class. I mean, look at the environmental tax. I wonder, and I know Premier Brantley, spoke of this in his very early days of politics. The environmental tax, what is it there for? You spend $5,000 for bringing in a second-hand car, a car that's over 5 years. I mean, who is this benefited? The same set of people that move themselves up in the class, the corporate firm, them exploiting poor people. And there are people who go in position and can do something about it. And because they suddenly find themselves in that class too, they forget their commitment to the masses. That's bad.
Well, all I have to say about that's a human tendency, and it exists everywhere, every part of the planet, everywhere you go. You have people who aspire to reach the top, they make money and they move there. And it's not peculiar to Nevis, to St. Kitts, to the Caribbean or anywhere else. It happens in the United States, it happens in Russia, it happens even in China now, it happens.
Happens all over the world.
All over the world. That's a human tendency. When you reach a certain plateau, you move up. And you want to be up there with those who are up there.
And you see up there, you want to get there.
And you can't change that. So that's a waste of time. That's rubber talk.
No,
it is rubber talk, because it can't happen anywhere in the world.
Well, the point
so you reach up there and you forget about the other people who...
So don't you think it's happening in England as well?
It doesn't matter where it's happening.
It doesn't matter where it's
So how are you going to change here? Well, tell me one society...
The smaller the society,
hold on.
The more it's impacting.
Tell me one society where your idea, utopian idea exists. Not one country in the world.
But you see, that's probably.
So you want to create a utopia here? It's never going to happen.
Okay, but Mr.
because
Hudson,
that is not human nature.
Yeah, but
that is not human nature. And some of the poorest people who have reached the top here are the people who aspire to go to the VIP. And you're not going to change that.
No. But
anyway, let me comment.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Let me comment on something that Dr. Bartley
Okay,
raised.
let me take this first, Ted. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Naya. Yeah. But I think that those two gentlemen missing the point that you are trying to say. I think because they live in the upper class, that's why they're asking so.
But you out there working hard, and I'm certain at a certain point in time you can be.
Yeah, but you especially Ted saying, it happened in India, wherever, China and England and America. You are just trying to put across a point that it ain't supposed to happen like that either. But I guess them other two gentlemen, I guess they get offended with what you didn't say anyway. It might sound harsh, but in reality.
Quite so. And you're working every day.
Stanley,
you're working every day hard.
Yeah. You know, I know
and to send your children
Mr.
to
Stanley,
school.
let him finish.
Yes.
I know you know me good, but my thing is, right, you all need to change our mindset because that's this same thing we're mashing up St. Kitts and Nevis, you know. This society foolishness that been going on for years. That you come out of the ghetto, you reach a certain status, and then you forget about the other people because you look down on them.
You shouldn't forget about them.
Yeah,
you should try. You should try and help them out of the ghetto.
The two you are just was saying there. It's obvious to see that I don't really care about other people.
I'm not so sure you're correct with that.
No. You can't tell me I'm correct because it's what you just said.
No, I'm saying to you that once you are aware of where you are, and one gets out.
Okay, let's.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller. Finish up.
You listen the kind of voice that Mr. Hudson was just talking.
Yes, I did.
So when you get over there,
he was trying to amplify the obvious.
What? You know something? Let me start and talk to yourself. I don't think you're in a position to talk to me.
I agree with you.
Okay, caller, Mr. Hobson, I'll give him the opportunity. Good evening, thank you for... Okay, please call back. Mr. Hobson, go ahead. You were making a...
I don't know, but I grew up in a country where originally everybody was more or less the same. Some few people were few. And I played a lot of sports and games and so forth. Up to the present time, I walked on the street of Charlestown, and the simplest person walking in the street called me Ted. I am who I am, you know. So I don't, you know, it's all good and well to talk these fancy talk and so forth. But the reality of the situation is that I feel part of the masses. I have identified with the masses. I went to Jamaica. I was part of the PMP. I work with the ghetto people and so forth because I appreciate them. They're generally very, very honest and sincere, and I feel more comfortable there. So whoever want to take from what I say in one particular light is a matter for them.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good night, Mr. Herbert. Hello?
Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, right? But I totally agree with what Dr. Bartlett said. Because I work in all the schools except in those at St. James's, St. Thomas's. And you could go to a particular school first day in September, and you could know who they are poor or who ain't poor because it's class. Understand? And always have a problem with starting with that old VIP. Anybody who is VIP? Anybody better than anybody? I always have a problem with that. I'm a person, I'm not lonely because I have my children, I'm not lonely. But I always have a problem with people thinking better than people. It's my personal self, right? My children so-called close family. And all other, and two people very well. They only at high and hail to me now because my daughter is a medical doctor. But apart from that, it's a wonder what I used to do to them. You know, this class, first class. If you think of it as anybody, let them lie down on a hospital bed, full of pain, watching the doctor and watching the nurse, and nothing is done. They will see exactly how VIP they are. When they lie down dead, they find out who is VIP for holding VIP. It's class in this. Is it church? Yes, class.
I have never been at the VIP lounge for culture, man. Never been there. You understand?
Yeah, but if I may respond.
I have always looked after people because that is where I belong. And that's from whence I came. And for me, I'm always out there trying to help the downtrodden. The fellow who simply been identified as who needs a leg up. I've spent years abroad, and people have always come, and I would always say, here, do something, make yourself a couple of dollars before you go back to Nevis. And that's how I've always operated. Here I am in Nevis, I see people, and I give them advice as to how to better themselves and to more or less move themselves up the economic ladder.
Okay, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air. Good evening, thank you for holding. Okay, callers, I'm going to encourage you that when you call, don't listen to radio, listen to the telephone, okay? Please call back. Yes, Mr. Stanley.
So, the discussion we are having, it is an attitudinal problem, and there are people who feel for some reason that they have been among, for whatever reason, they may have made sacrifices, whether to have studied harder, whether to have worked harder, and to have saved more, and to have accumulated, and for whatever reason, they feel they have risen above, as the case might be, and that's an attitudinal problem. It is a mindset sometimes, and from a psychological point of view, people tend to feel good about themselves when they have left the area of abject poverty and to have arrived at a level where they can feed themselves, clothe themselves, shelter themselves. Because there are some people who, for some
But you
reason,
know, that's slightly different to the argument that Dr. Bartlett was making. Dr. Bartlett seemed to suggest that when you have this VIP set aside using government funds, then how come people like myself and her don't get invited? That's,
I interrupted her.
I'm just trying to...
I interrupted her to get a clarification. Well, go ahead.
Did I clarify you well, Dr. Bartlett?
Pretty well.
Okay, so that's the clarification. So you say what?
Well, like I said, I was focused on the VIP at the Culturama thing, and I had no idea as to how people got there.
So now that you get the idea from Dr. Bartlett, you say what?
Well, government funds should not be used to separate or to bring about classes, as the case may be, because it's taxpayers' money, and it's coming from all the classes, all the members who pay taxes.
Good. That was just my point, and it took you so long to get around to accepting that. That's the point I was trying to make. You don't have to oppose everything, you know.
You sure he accepted?
Well, he said it himself. He summarized the whole thing.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that, you know, Mr. Dobson had to get so emotional about the whole thing, but I mean, it wasn't anything personal about any individual, and I'm saying, and I would reiterate, that I have no issue with a man who wants to feel like he's above everybody else once he's spending his own money. The issue that I've brought to the fore is that when government funds are being used, it ought not to be to sustain a class. And I would always say that. I don't know when I would ever veer away from making, you know, that point.
This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Ted Hobson, Conrad Naya Liebert, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. We'll be back after these.
A place you can go to and relax and enjoy a healthy meal? Check out Island Life Vegetarian Food and Juice Bar located at Penny's Industrial Site below the supply office. They are open Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They offer you healthy, delicious, nutritious food on a menu that boasts ital food, sandwiches, burgers, roti, puddings, and much more. They have a wide variety of freshly squeezed fruit and vegetable juices and smoothies that includes beet, carrot, pumpkin, tamarind, star apple, and sarsaparilla, and much more. Contact them today at 660-5318 or 668-3107.
Island Roofing and Hardware Limited, located next to the Monduk Track on Long Point Road, Nevis, specializes in the manufacture of 24-gauge pre-painted Galvalume roof sheets and the sale of tropical green hat lumber. They offer the traditional corrugated roof design for residential buildings along with the U-panel design for commercial buildings. Their roof sheets measure 42 inches in width and are manufactured on site and can be cut to whatever length you desire, thus eliminating the need for joining your roof sheets. Their aluminum-based roofing sheets, which are available at an affordable price of only $14 per foot, are of the highest quality. Their opening hours are Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. For more information, call 664-2441 or 664-2959. Island Roofing and Hardware Limited, meeting your complete roofing needs by providing quality products at affordable prices.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good night, I don't want it on air. I want to tell Bartlett that I lose
No, if you don't want to be on the air, call me at 10 o'clock, okay?
I want it.
No, but you this is a live program.
Bartlett he wants.
That's a light moment.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
we seem to have veered away from the original discussion. But I remember something that Dr. Bartlett said, which I entirely agree with, that we need to tackle some of the very small things. And she mentioned the tinting of the window, the glass, and all of that, which is a real problem in this country. The law prescribes that you can't have your windows darker than a certain shade. And when you walk the streets of Charlestown, you can't see anybody in the car. Sure. And it is the law, and the police have spoken every now and then. They come up with it, but they still allow it to happen. I mean, and this kind of situation where the law is being breached every day creates a situation where people think they can do as they like. That is one of the reasons why I am saluting the Honorable Premier for the situation with the vendors in town. He decided that he is going to make sure that the vending ordinance is upheld.
But let me ask you this, Ted. The vending ordinance is upheld.
Ordinance, yeah.
Right. So they have a tinting ordinance?
No. Well, they have a law against
a law,
tinting.
Right. So then maybe the best thing to do then is, since the vending ordinance is upheld, ordinance, yeah, maybe we should make, instead of a law for the tinting, make it an ordinance too. Because I don't understand.
No, the ordinance is a Nevis legislation from the Nevis House of Assembly. They can only pass ordinances, and that's a local law, Nevis law.
So you're not,
when it comes to the tinting, it's federal.
So you're not telling, well, all right. So you're not telling me then that because it is an ordinance, it is enforced?
No, I'm not telling you that.
Okay. So, but you see what I'm trying to get at, right, is the truth of the whole thing. The persons who are to enforce the ordinance are who?
The police.
And the persons who are to enforce the law for tinting are who?
The police.
Okay, so why the difference?
I don't know.
Can I say something on that when you're done?
Yeah.
Go ahead when you finish.
Yeah, and I raise that because I think it is one of the problems we have. We don't respect the law. We don't respect the law. We don't respect rules in this country. And this country, not only this Nevis, but St. Kitts as well.
But you also agree, though, that notwithstanding it has been said, the vending still goes on.
Yes, but
okay.
Not in the street as it was before.
Really?
There is an exemption put for Friday and Saturday, which I think was a good idea.
So it doesn't happen
from Monday to Thursday. There's no vending in the street, and this is a departure from what used to take place.
Yeah.
And
one of the things we also going to learn to have to do. We have to say the thing as it is, right? Because what happens is, a lot of the times, right? I've noticed over the years that most people have two opinions on everything. One for public consumption and one for private consumption. Some of the time, most of the times, we have to let our yea be yea and the nay be nay. Dr. Bartlett, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make a distinction between the law and the ordinance because, of course, laws would supersede ordinances in some circumstances in any event. But the observation I wanted to make, though, is that I think that it's about time that we revisited this tint law, if it is only just a law. And in these times, I do not know what the rationale would have been and for the level that was set if the level was set for 35%, I've heard people, saying 35 or whatever, I think that the rationale should be revisited. And in times like these, I think that the percentage should be down to 0. I don't think that you should have on any tint on your vehicle at all in these times, except for maybe official vehicles, that because we know we don't have armored cars. I would, consider that, those vehicles, that would carry the Deputy Governor General in Nevis and the Premier and, high officials, I would, consider those should be, exempt from that. But other vehicles, I don't think that it is necessary. And I don't think that it should be allowed. And I think that they should go into Parliament and have a decree against any tint on any vehicle.
But let me say this. The objective for tinting is to obscure and to somewhat make it difficult for you to ascertain who's in that vehicle. The fellow who wants to do something nefarious or illegal, he comes in a vehicle with transparent glass, but he puts a mask on.
That is just a ridiculous assertion. You ever see anybody driving around town with a mask on and
I am just
vehicle that is open?
No, they're not going to drive around.
They're not going to do that, Stanley. Just start thinking
with it.
deeper than that,
I'm
man.
just trying to
You just don't have to oppose every...
No, it's not that. I'm just attempting to tell you that
on,
you have to go a little further.
You must
because
have
the
a
objective,
rationale, man.
the objective of these people with tinted windows is to prevent identification.
Right. So don't allow anybody to tint windows, and that's just the point. Could you just accept that?
Just leave it there. People used to rob people without masks. Now they put on masks.
Well, that's possible, but I mean, what she
No, I'm not telling you. I'm just saying you have to begin to outthink them. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Come on, but you're accommodating them when you have tint on. Because a man is in a vehicle, he doesn't even have to put a mask on.
You can't see who's in the car.
Some cars come out with tint.
Yeah, so let them stay in Japan.
We change them.
Not heavily tinted, but
those are
of course
options.
it's a concern. No doubt about it. Too many times a car approached me and they will hoot their horn, but I'll never wave because you don't know who's in the car, and that's happening all the time. It's one of the things that encourages the drive-by shooting,
especially in broad daylight.
Yes, But also, I must say, tint on cars also to shade the inside. Sometimes the sun is a bit destructive. But I think all of this will take second place to security, and so forth. I am one who believes that the tint should be minimized to a great extent, if not totally removed. I don't really see, in this kind of climate, really, but some of the police want their car tint to it. That must be understood. They're the ones who are supposed to enforce the law, but some of them also want their vehicle tint. So I guess they have a problem there, because it's like, okay, you make me take off mine, what about yours? Or what about Corporal Brown? So of course we probably got to, enforce the law as it is, and remove any kind of skepticism, any tentativeness towards the fact that you can hide away behind your tint, really.
So what is the advantage of the heavy tinting to people besides not wanting people to recognize who they are?
I don't know.
That is it.
It's
not about no sun.
Entertaining the thought of doing bad things. They don't want to be identified, and therefore they're...
Why not? Why you don't want to be recognized? I don't know.
Well, if you're with somebody else's wife, you may not want nobody to see inside there. Or if you're going to be doing bad, if you're going to rob somebody, you're not going to want to see anybody done. I mean, these are things that we are accommodating.
I'm just saying to you, the thing is that they do not want to be identified or seen, and as a result, the windows are tinted. Right. And that's because of the thinking of the person who are in that vehicle.
And you don't know why they don't want to be seen.
They will eventually find a way of doing what they want to do whether or not that vehicle is tinted.
But they used to do that at nights, but they're not doing it at nights now. And that is just the point. They want to take day and make night, you know?
Yeah.
But that can't be fair to the rest of us.
That's well put.
I mean, that cannot be fair to the rest of us. You're compromising everyone else's security. And you're talking about security, it's not just about surveillance cameras, you know? These are little things that I think that we need to work on. We need to consider these little things.
Well, I guess what we got to do now is to identify, because all these cars find a resting place somewhere when nobody's in them. So, if you begin to zero in on those vehicles that are heavily tinted, then you could maybe go a little further and say, that is somebody who might be engaged in wrongdoing and consequently does not want to be identified.
Yeah, but their wrongdoing might not be illegal. You know, they might is criminal.
Well, I'm just saying,
there's no win-win here. It may not be legal. I mean,
it may not be illegal. Some fella may have a nice girl.
There you go, someone else's girl. Right, and what has been happening though is that some of the crimes that have been committed right here in the Federation have been in vehicles that don't even belong to the people who perpetrated the crimes. You know, they go and steal someone else's car that have tints on them.
Yeah.
So we are accommodating these things.
Yeah.
We need to consider these things. Wouldn't you rather just have something up? If your issue is the sun is too hot. They used to sell these little things like these visors that you put up in a vehicle. Get one of those.
Well, my car is not tinted, so I don't have a problem with that. But like I said, you can begin to identify people who are engaged in things that are not good. And we probably could start there by figuring out some of those people who are doing bad things.
Much easier to outlaw tint. Could I propose something else? You know, I think that it's about time that women start to spend some more time with their kids as well. And I was doing a little reading, and as it relates to the number of hours that we work, and there was a study that was done that suggested that most people, when they go to work, they don't work for more than 3 productive hours in a day in any event. So if you're going to keep us on the job for 8 hours, and the children didn't get looked after this morning, and they're not getting looked after this afternoon, maybe it's time that we start to consider a little shorter work day as well. Mr. Stanley is not going to like that. But in Sweden, which is very productive, you know, Sweden is now down to 6 hours a day.
That's discipline.
They're now down to 6 hours a day, and they're doing very well, because even in the United Kingdom, they're saying people in the United Kingdom who work for less than 3 hours, productive hours a day. You know, we can't really come up with this kind of data because we hardly do any studies on ourselves here, and which is unfortunate because we cannot plan effectively if we don't have data, and we're not making any headway. It seems like, you know, in order to be able to do studies on our population, you know, so I have to always refer to someone else's information, you know. So on the basis of how well Sweden is doing on 6 hours a day, I want to suggest again that we try to give these women, particularly because most women, working women, most mothers rather, not necessarily working women, but most working mothers, they just do not spend enough time with their kids. In the morning, the kids have to go off by 8. They have to go off by 8 themselves. They come back in the afternoon. They have a second job because, you know, daddy is not there, and they're not spending enough time. So I want to propose that we consider starting work at 9 for women, men in the civil service, which government would have control over. I've said that before, and I want to say it again. Please let us consider, give women an extra hour in the morning to look after their kids properly and be able to at least admonish them before they go off to school, how to behave and all the rest of it. They're not doing it right now. We are not doing it. We're not accomplishing that. And until we start addressing these issues in the home, we're not going to get it addressed on the street.
So you think the reason why they're not doing it is because they don't have the extra hour?
Yes. I'm saying give them an extra hour at least.
I got you.
And then the productivity, rate of productivity
will go up.
No, probably would be reduced to 2.5 hours?
No, that's not what it says. When you go on the job, you have things to do. A lot of times you have things to do, you get it done in 3 hours, and after that you just check your mail on the internet, you do a lot of different things. And like I said, I'm not referring to a study that was done here. I'm referring to a study that was done in a developed country. So you could imagine, I don't think that we're at that level of productivity, trust me.
Well, how will you answer Edric's point that it is discipline? In other words, you cannot maybe perhaps just take it and put it to another group of people who are of a different discipline.
But discipline is something that you can instill in something that you can, work on. I don't know that we do not have the capacity to be disciplined, but if we're not required to, circumstances don't force us to be disciplined. We just lackadaisical, we just go along with the flow. We get up in the morning, you hustle, you go to work, you reach there, you sit down, you're tired. I mean, you take a break, you talk to your friends, all that, even before you start doing anything. Anybody comes before 9 o'clock, you get disgruntled and vexed with them anyway, and they still have to wait until 9 before you serve them.
So would they be paid for an hour less?
No. You're not being paid for an hour
I was going to come with that. Because once
you're being paid for productive time. I'm just saying what the trend is. People are moving away from working for 8 hours. It makes no sense of a man on the job for 8 if you only going to produce for 3.
So those get paid for 3?
Don't be ridiculous. So feed his family.
But not for the policies in Europe is to encourage children, encourage people getting kids. In France and a lot of those places. I was wondering if that's one of them.
Well, you need more family time, yes, because they allow for more family time. They make sure that people in Europe, I mean, by law, you must give people 4 weeks vacation. I mean, these are things that, happen in developed countries, and because with experience, they recognize.
America don't give any holiday.
Yeah, that's why.
America doesn't give holiday.
Right, and that they're not a model. I would never look to them as a model. Look at the social dysfunction that is happening in America, and that's it. If we continue to pattern ourselves after America, that is just what we're going to have.
I'm just
people
saying
shooting
that
on one another in the streets.
For a developed country, we give holiday here, but in America don't. There's no law that say you have to give holiday.
Right, but they're not my model.
Anyway, I entirely agree with Dr. Bartlett to raise the issue of mothers and with these children, because there is no doubt in my mind, Webo, that one of the problems that we have in these islands is that the parental control is lacking. When the Four Seasons came here, we were all very pleased and we were all very happy. The first go-around, you had over 600 women who started working at the Four Seasons. You had another maybe 300 men on top of that. But for the first time, what you had, Weber, was that these women were leaving home, and in some cases the grandmothers as well were leaving home. And by the time they get back to their home and they leave in the morning early, the children are out of school. Nobody is controlling them, and that is really the real problem. The mothers and grandmothers and fathers and so forth have very little time with their children, and so they are able to run wild, and nobody's teaching them control and discipline and all of that. The little discipline they get is at school, but when they leave school, they're on their own at home. And they mix with other children, and they get up to all kinds of problems. I mean, I know when I was small and there was holiday and so forth, and us boys get together, we get up to all kinds of things, Probably pick people mango and do all the kind of things. So it is that lack of control that we have in these islands of children that is causing the real problem. And you have gangs now, which has crept into our society and all of that. And all because these children are at a loose end after school, because their mothers and grandmothers are out working. So there's no family control anymore. And, it takes a village to raise a child, as it used to be said. Once upon a time, that was so. People in Rollins their grandmothers are there, and the neighbors are there looking for them after the children, and when the parents can't be there, and they feel they have a right to discipline these children because they are part of the neighborhood and so forth. That doesn't exist anymore. So until we could find some mechanism, Webo, to encourage or force in some way or the other mothers and fathers to spend more time with their children, we are going to be in this serious problem, and it's going to get worse.
We have to be concerned. We have to become our brother's keeper, and maybe we have strayed away from that. But if we lack discipline as adults, we will never be able to harness the problem. Because if I don't have the authority to discipline your children, then the children would always be disrespectful to me and to everybody else. But again, we can begin to amplifying it from here, and when we go out back to our neighborhoods, we practice it. But sometimes people live like enemies. We are in a adversarial society, and it is getting worse every day. We no longer live neighborly, and as a result, I don't even know, some people don't even know their neighbors. I haven't spoken to their neighbors in years.
There you go.
But if we are attempting to bring the society back to where it was years ago, then we have to begin to reach out at one another, say hello. I mean, I go, and when I pass people, I say hello. If you don't want to say hello, it's up to you. I know I've done my civic duty. I've done my good deed for the day. I've said hello. If I have to give somebody a ride, I give somebody a ride. If I have to reach out and help in some other way, I would have done my good deed for the day. And if we instill in ourselves to do one good deed per day at least to somebody, then we would be bringing our society back to where it was. Some people, again, are very ill-mannered. They say hello and they don't answer. But it doesn't bother me one bit, because I would have said my bit.
Will development come with its consequences? So often we talk about we want to see the place develop. We want more hotels and so forth. And of course, this is not abiding with what we're talking about here, because it looks like people would be always gravitating towards that extra buck. You know, you neglect your child, you cannot measure the consequence of that short term, obviously. But of course, you spend that extra hour, extra day on the job, you can count how much extra money you're making. And people gravitate towards that extra money. We see people coming from other countries, and we know we got to speed up too, because they are taking the jobs. And of course, that leads to, you know, not spending sufficient time as a family unit, and for mothers and fathers not spending sufficient time with the kids. But are they willing to give up these opportunities, these economic opportunity, to do that, you know?
Okay, Naya, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, Weber.
Yes, now, the CCTV cameras that are around the islands, or, I mean, in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, I mean, what really is the use if you have all of these cars with these heavy tint, and there might be somebody camera on the side of the road that could have picked up or see, you know, what's going on. But then if you have these heavy tinted cars going around, what's the use of the CCTV cameras? And my belief is, for the high crime rate in St. Kitts and Nevis, it started with this, you know, freedom of movement, where, you know, the people can go, you know, wherever they feel like, you know, come into your country, and you don't have no real control. So everything is out of control. I believe that's one of the main reasons
where the crime rate really went up in St. Kitts and Nevis. And that's my
Some of our people who have lived in the United States and have been deported, some who have been involved with gun crimes, as the case might be, have reached back to these islands throughout the entire Caribbean. And some of them continued what they were doing in the United States in their various countries of birth.
And recruit other people.
And that is one of the big problems. I think at the ministerial level, prime ministerial level, that has been taken up and has been discussed with United States authorities. I do not know how much leverage we have with reference to asking them not to deport those people who, in fact, lived there for so many years, being culturalized.
Well, Mr. Stanley.
Guyana did send back a plane, innit? Guyana.
I'm just saying to you that that's one of the problems, because I understood one fellow who came back here was involved in quite a number of murders. I think he has already molded the earth. But he was one who had been deported and was involved in a lot of killings.
How do they know?
So I heard through the grapevine. No name, no blame, no shame. But in fact, we
But
can.
I don't think that is part of the problem with us in the society. We just have a feeling about something,
not
and then
just a feeling, Webo.
we make a but then if you know, why wasn't he locked up? Why wasn't he in prison? Why wasn't he prosecuted? Why didn't he go to jail? If you're going to conclude that this fellow killed 2, 3, 4, 5 people, right? So you don't have any laws. You don't have.
We have laws and we have people.
But you conclude that this fellow killed 5 people.
There are people who, in fact, sat on the jury, ready to convict, but because of fear. They don't vote to convict. They know that the crime has been done, and based on the evidence presented, some are ready to convict, and some say, no, I'm not going to. Does that answer your question, Webo? At least, I know it answers your question. Let's get real. We have to figure out what the problem is and maybe use some mechanism to give people a new identity and a new place of residence. Exchange of destination for the witness program. Set it up in a certain way that when people, in fact, go out on a limb and would have made a statement or a judgment call, then that judgment call doesn't come back to haunt them personally.
But who really wants to relocate? You think most people are going to want to relocate? Most people just keep their mouth shut rather than take the option of relocating.
They might.
And that is something that you have to consider as well.
They might take the easier route, the easier way out.
And that is what is happening.
The path of least resistance. So, in that regard, they might remain silent rather than.
We have to fix the problem before we get to that point. We have to try to figure it out. Like so famously like to say you need to figure it out. But the thing is, we're just not going about it the right way. I get so heartened as to the approach sometimes. It baffles me.
Because of course we started with the Jamaica episode, and the gentleman had mentioned that the people who are being sought after by the gunmen know who they're looking for. But now Jamaica has put in place that curfew. And maybe sooner or later, we too would have to do it. I mean, that's where we started when the program started with your famous call, Webber, as to what we think in terms of giving our opinion on it. And I'm saying to you that based on the creeping up of the number of murders, with reference where here we are, 23, 22 for the year, and the year is still 3 months.
3/4 of the year gone. You have a
And
next quarter
therefore,
to go.
the next quarter. So if we do the math, 7, 3 into 21 is 7.
Anyway, let's hope, let's not make those kind of projection or
Well, I'm
kind of
just
proclamation, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's just...
So, again, we have to figure it out and take drastic action. How are we going to do it? And who's going to do it? The police, of course, can't do it alone. We, the citizenry, have to, in fact, work and help the police to solve a lot of these crimes. At the same time, these households know what's going on within it.
But Webber, you know what puzzles me? I still can't understand why is it we're resisting so strongly not to bring a criminologist. We bring everybody else except a criminologist, somebody who could figure out what is going on. You know?
Well,
somebody who could look at the statistics, look at the data, and be able to predict what is likely to happen when. And we have, up to this point, have not been given consideration to a criminologist.
But those criminologists, they would be coming from another jurisdiction.
Let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webber, good evening. I would just like to ask a quick question to Mr. Stanley or any of the others. Do you realize what time these murders are now happening, which is in high day? So if you're talking about a curfew, what time would that curfew be?
Well, that is an important question, and based on the time that these murders are occurring, it would not make sense to have a 24-hour curfew. It means that you would have paralyzed the entire country. So that is, of course, a very important question.
I mean, the shooting in Sinkers on Sunday was, if I'm not mistaken, in the middle of the afternoon, and then when I saw the reports this afternoon about this murder, it certainly wasn't nighttime as yet. So I want to believe it happened sometime, maybe late afternoon. So I'm asking myself at this point then, you know, just listening to the discussion, what time would there be a curfew? I've heard a lot of talk about, you know, women not having the time to spend with their children, and the children are no longer in home, the grandparents are no longer in home. I tend to not agree with that. When you have children, you make time for your children. And a lot of us, Webber, you and I'm speaking of our age group, grew up where we did not necessarily have parents in the home. Because remember, a lot of the parents went off to the other islands to seek employment to be able to send back to their families. Yes, maybe some of those homes had grandparents left behind. Women were not working as much. But I think a commitment needs to be made to being a parent to your child, a mother to your child. And yes, it's tough. Yes, you have to work. Yes, you have to put some things in place. But once you make that commitment and you spend quality time with your children, I think you have a pretty good chance of raising a child that's going to stay out of trouble. So we can't always say, oh, it's the time and the time of the jobs and that. I think it's a lot deeper than that. It comes from we're just having babies. We're not committing ourselves to raising those children. And that, I think, is a deeper problem. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Parenting is an awesome task. It's a 24-hour occupation.
What?
And if we focus on how and where our children should be going, it means that it's a continuous, repetitious episode in terms of telling them over and over, and sometimes you still don't get the desired results.
Weber, in response to the first question that the caller, or the first observation that she made as it relates to the time of day, you know, I myself, you know, I was not necessarily even contemplating the curfew because Nevis is relatively small compared to Jamaica. I don't see how we could, if we impose a curfew in Nevis, I mean, we're a tourist destination, the place shut down. So I don't see how practical that could be. But she made reference to the fact that things were happening, you know, in the day, which is an observation that we would have already made here. But the thing is, we already, I think most of us agreed as well that it is nighttime in the cars, and it's time that we lighten up the cars. And I think that was what the discussion, you know, kind of centered around, you know, as it relates to a solution or a possible solution. As it relates to the observation that she made about children and she not having a parent or people in that they're not having a parent. There was a guardian, you know, and a guardian was almost as good as the parent in those days. Those days are long gone. And what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to find a close enough substitute to that. But now, like you said, grandmother is almost as young as, I mean, grandmothers are like 30 years old nowadays, you know, so they're out there working, so that is not an option. We have already, I think, you know, some programs past, we would have already, you know, established the fact that as it relates to, where was the thought that I was working on just now? Where I missed that one?
Senior moment.
I had a very senior moment just now. But I was talking to Mr. Hobson, he laughed at me.
I laughed at myself.
Anyway, so yes, I was making the point that we have already dismantled the village. We do not have the village now, and government is very complicit in that. We have dismantled the villages, and there is no turning back now. We have created some areas that we call affordable housing schemes and development, and that is going to be a sore point for us in years to come. These are places that have never worked in developed countries. Those places that they have tried it before, they have never worked. And for some reason, we have gone into this thing with our eyes wide shut, you know? I mean, we just plunge into it, and now we have these areas that are going to be problem areas for us, you know, in times to come. And I hope that we desist from building those. Mr. Hobson is going to support me on that one. So somebody else could have a last word.
What, to be honest, these areas existed years ago.
What areas?
You're talking about the public housing, the housing scheme that they have, where these people who may not be able to afford to pay for their houses?
The first set of people used to be able to afford them. They had 4 houses over in Brown Hill, and those people are pretty much set in those houses. And I'm not saying, I'm just talking about this mass housing that you have in small areas.
I'm just saying to you that that's the way a village was set up years ago.
Villages were not set up like that.
Sure, everybody had a little house.
It was different. Different. It was over years.
Yes, and the dynamics within there, I mean, it still exists that, you know, we look out of, you know, as neighbors, now people are just being forced together from all over the country. They don't necessarily have anything in common.
That's a different
The only thing they have in common is that they're all poor.
Yeah.
But, you know,
okay, that's what I really
meant. That is the only thing, and it's a sore point, you know, when poor people get together, what do you think they're going to do and what do you think they're going to discuss? You think they're not going to get angry like how Naya was talking about earlier? You don't concentrate those kind of...
Well, I'm just saying to you that years ago, everybody was poor, and the same thing is happening in these areas now. Everybody who is there is poor. So the dynamic is the same.
No. It is different. You have a bunch of people now living together who have nothing in common, except that they're poor. They were forced together. You know, a lot of us, you know, grew up in an area where we were cousins, or because my mother have a little piece of a lot here, my sister a lot next to it, or, you know, her sister a lot next to it. People used to be, you know, there was something that bonded us, you know, that bonded us together. Not just the fact that we're all poor. That can't be fair. It's not fair, and it's going to come back to haunt us. you know, because it has not worked in other countries, in other places where you have this high density, you know, housing density. It doesn't make sense. You know,
All
people
poor.
get angry, of course.
All poor with a mortgage.
Right, you know, nobody could help nobody.
Financial stress.
Yeah, I grew up in an area where, you know, my neighbors, they were better off than us. And so when, you know, one person moved up in the class, I mean, I would get, you know, the clothes from my neighbor, you know, and that's how we survived that period of time. You know, even though we were all poor, we got along. You know, we looked out for each other. You know, I didn't have to wait until my sister, you know, grew out of her clothes, because the neighbor's, you know, daughter grew out of her clothes, and I could get some of those too. That's not happening now.
Well, I hope that we can make it happen, because we are people of the same race. Unfortunately, we might come from different countries.
You hope that you can make what happen, that you go back and get your neighbor's clothes?
Yeah, the whole relationship. Well, but whatever, we are here searching for answers.
And the answer you would like to have is that you hope that we can go back to get
we
neighbor's
work
clothes.
together.
The answer you would like to have is that you hope that we can go back and get our neighbor's clothes.
Well, that was not my statement.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 for On the Mark. Thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding